So, welcome students to the seventh session of the CA and CMA final direct tax law for all the students appearing in May 24, November 24 CA final exam and CMA and CMA June and December 24. This is all new course students. So now in this students, yesterday we were doing the non-resident taxation and we were discussing on the residential status part. So now students, we have seen so far as an individual, what will be the residential status? That is point number one that we have discussed already. So far as the individual was concerned, students, we have seen in this case, and we have discussed that very important case study, students, in the last session. And I told you that keep in mind. So, students, in this particular case, individual, just ensure to mark that very important question that we all did. That question was that the four husband and wife and the two sons, isn't it? Just do that because this covers each and every aspect of whatever we have to discuss in this regard. Okay, fine. Now, students, herein on the company particular part, herein in this case, what we have discussed so far as the company is concerned, students, we have discussed this that Indian company always is a resident. An Indian company, students, is always a resident. And so far as a foreign company is concerned, they will be considered as a resident only if the poem is in India. One important particular point, students, if the question is silent and then they have given you about discuss the tax implication for a foreign company. So if the question is silent, they are not talking anything about the poem. Always what? Always you will then make an assumption that this foreign company is a non-resident. They have to be very specific in their question to tell you that the poem of that foreign company is in India so that it could be considered as a resident for your question. Question silent, only a foreign company, no other information so far as its poem is concerned. Then in all such particular cases, we will assume that the poem is outside India, therefore the foreign company is a non-resident, and on that basis only the solution needs to be worked out. I hope that every one of you are clear with this one now. Fine, students. Now, quickly, in fact, going further in our discussion, if you see wherein the company is fulfilling the active business outside India test and the company which is not fulfilling the active business outside India test, these are the two aspects that we were discussing in the last lecture. Company fulfilling the active business outside India test and the company which is not fulfilling the active business outside India test. If it is fulfilling the active business outside India test, then the poem is always presumed to be where? Outside India. Because it is satisfying, na? Active business outside India test. So the poem is always presumed to be outside India. But only condition over here is this, that the majority of the board meetings should take place outside India. Majority of the board meeting, students, should take place where? Outside India. But then please go through the question carefully, and if they tell you that the de facto decision making authority of that foreign company is in India, the de facto decision making authority of that foreign company is in India, if this is what they have told to you, then in that situation, students, we will say what? That the poem of that foreign company is in India, and accordingly it will be considered as a resident in India. But that is, again, I'm telling you, students, this part has to be through a specific provision. If the question is silent They only tell you, say for example, in the examination, the questions only tell you that this is a foreign company and its active business is outside India. Only this much is given. They are neither telling you about the board meetings, they are not telling you about the de facto decision making authority. They only have told you that this is a foreign company and its active business is outside India. This much information only is given. In such particular case, students, what would be your observation? What are you going to say about that? A foreign company, active business outside India, that is the only information. Okay, there is no further information about what? That board meetings or the de facto decision making authority. So in such particular case, my question to all of you is whether you will presume the poem to be in India or outside India. In this case, outside India. Active business is outside India. So poem will be presumed to be outside India if there are no other information which has been given to you. The poem will be presumed to be outside India and therefore it will be considered as a non-resident. And therefore it will be considered as what? As a non-resident. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. Yes, Ram. That's true. So this is how the things has to be looked upon, students. I hope that every one of you are clear with this. Now, if the ABOI, the active business outside India test, if that is not fulfilled, then I told you two stage tests to be considered. And those two stage tests are: one, who is the person who is making the key managerial and commercial decision of that foreign company? Who is that person who is making this key managerial and commercial decision of the foreign company? And what is the second one? When he is taking that decision. Oh, sorry, where he is taking that decision. So it's who and where ultimately will decide the final outcome. It is who and where that will ultimately decide the final outcome. And if that where finally is in India, in this case, then the foreign company which is not satisfying the active business outside India test, if that where is outside India, then that foreign company will be considered as a non-resident. If that where is in India, then that foreign company which is not satisfying the active business outside India test, that case it will be considered as resident because that where is in India. I hope that now this point is well taken to all of you. If that be the case, students, now many of the students are suggesting, sir, then what is this active business outside India? Can you see the next particular box? Over here, students, the first box will take you to what is active business, and the second box, students, will take you to what is outside India. Active business outside India. So the first box will tell you how do you decide this active business, and the second box, students, will tell you in this particular scenario what is this outside India. Okay, so these are the two particular aspects that you be very careful about it in this regard. So students, over here, if you see very carefully, just read it this one out, students, all of you, just read it once quickly. Active business outside India. Through this one, all of you read it. So first of all, how do we know that the business is active? For that purpose, students, what is to be seen is, in this case, the passive income should not be more than 50% of the total income of that foreign company. Passive income should not be more than 50% of the total income of that foreign company. So therefore, the question is, what will constitute the passive income? What will constitute the passive income? So passive income, if you all see, it will be royalty, dividend, capital gains, interest. But definitely, please be careful. Huh? This is interest will be considered only for a non-banking company, because as far as the banking company is concerned, the interest is very much an active business income. For a banking company, it is what? It is an active business income. So therefore, this will be considered only in the case of a non-banking company. And the third one, students, is the rental income. So all the income other than the business income, PGBP, all the income other than the business income, which is PGBP, all that other the income will be considered, in which there will be royalty, dividend, capital gains, interest, or that matter it is the rental income. But the interest, again I am repeating, will not be considered for whom? For the banking companies. Just be very careful. ICI keeps asking very minute things in NR taxation. I've seen that. Just you cannot be casual about these informations. Apart from that, in point number 2, one transaction also will be considered as a passive income. And which is that transaction? The transaction that you can see over here. Now, many of you will say, sir, what is this A? A, students, is associated enterprise. Here, the A is what? The associated enterprise. Now, if you see very carefully over here, from the transactions where both the purchase and sale of goods is from or to the A, is from or to whom? To the associated enterprise. So please tell me just now, because this is a transfer pricing concept, just for the time being, to make you understand, this is nothing but a related party. This A, students, is nothing but what? A related party. So if the purchase is also from a related party and the sales is also to whom? To a related party. I have done the purchase from a related party and I am doing the sale also to a related party. Purchase from a related party and sales to a related party. Both. Then do you think that in this case, am I doing a business then? I purchase a goods from a related party and the same goods is been transferred to another related party. Then do you think that I have done any business in that? The answer is no. This is not a business where you purchase both the goods from the related party and the same is sold to another related party. This cannot be considered as a business. And if it cannot be considered as a business, in that particular case, students, whatever is the profit from that transaction will be considered as a part of your passive income. And that part will be added with the already identified passive income in point number 1. Already identified passive income in point number 1. Take the total of all 1 and 2 and then check what? That whether that total, does it exceed what? 50% of the total income. 50% of the total income. If it doesn't exceed 50% of the total income, then the business is active, because your passive income is not more than 50% of the total income. In this case, it will mean that the business is active. Now, if the business is active, that is one test. But apart from that, students, it should also be outside India. Business is active is one thing. At the same time, students, that should also be what? Also be outside India. How do we identify that is also India? So please have a look over here. For each of the following, the threshold should be less than 50%. That is to say, each elements that you are going to see in the second box, that element presence in India should be less than 50%. Not up to 50%. Less than. Be careful, students. These words are very, very deceptive. It should be less than, or here less than or equal to. Quite deceptive phrases are being used. So each element presence should be less than 50% in India. Only then we can say that the active business is outside India. The active business is outside India, students. Now, in that situation, students, what is less than 50%, students? If you can see for this, so here you will find point number one: the total asset situated in India should be less than 50% of the of all the asset of that foreign company. So the asset presence in India should be less than 50% of all the asset of that foreign company. Similarly, point number two, the total number of the employees who are situated in India, again, it should be less than 50% of the total employees of that foreign company. Total employees of that foreign company. And the third one, the payroll that you are giving to this Indian employee, the payroll that you are giving it to the Indian employee, again should be less than 50% of the total payroll cost. Now, there was one very interesting question, an old question of the ICI, very interesting. They have told that this foreign company had almost 90% of the asset outside India. 90% of the asset outside India, only 10% of the asset was in India. There were total 100 employees of that foreign company. 100 employees of that foreign company, and 97 employees of that foreign company were outside India. Only 3 employees were there in India. But who were the 3 employees? CEO of the company, president and vice president of the company. These 3 employees, students, these 3 employees were in India. And obviously, the salary of these 3 employees was more than what? More than the salary of those 97 employees who were outside India. Therefore, the question was what? That whether the active business outside India test can that be said to be fulfilled? Answer is the active business outside India test cannot be said to have been fulfilled in this case. Is that point clear to all of you? So that is what it is. Now, by the way, I must tell you, all 1, 2, and 3, all the 3 points should be satisfied. So therefore, in my example right now, the third point is not getting satisfied, which is that the payroll which is paid to the Indian employee is less than 50% of the total payroll. The answer is no. This condition is not satisfied, and hence we will say that the active business outside India test is not fulfilled. And if the active business outside India test is not fulfilled, in that particular case, what we will say? Quickly, that we will go to that. Which box? Second box. If the active business outside India test is not fulfilled, in that case, students, in that particular case, what is that we have to suggest over here? Who is the person who is taking the key decision and where he is taking the decision? On that basis, we will decide the poem of that foreign company. On that basis, we will decide the poem of that particular foreign company. Fine. Now, with that, students, if you are through with this one, the meaning of certain terms are important, students, because your practical question will be based upon this. Quickly run through it once, students. The meaning of these terms which are being used in that table, active business outside India. Hope that all of you have read it now. So if you see students, this is one thing. The question is that which value we are supposed to consider it. That is one of the very important point, isn't it? Which value that we are supposed to consider it in this regard. So obviously the data of the foreign company would be as per the law of that foreign company. So whatever is the data that will be available so far as all these items that we have to test would be prepared by the foreign company as per what? As per the law of that foreign company. Obviously, because that is what the law was made applicable. Be it their tax laws or be it their accounting laws. Because we are testing whether the foreign company is a resident in India or not. That is what we are testing right now. So this foreign company in the country of their incorporation, they would be making all the books of accounts and the financial statements as per the law which is applicable in that country, both for the maintenance of books as well as for the tax purpose. So that is the reason why even for the purpose of testing the active business outside India test for determining each element in that test of ABOI, to determine each element in that ABOI test, we will consider the foreign data. We will consider what? The foreign data. Now in this case if you see the foreign data which we will consider it, whatever is the data which is available for tax purpose in that foreign country. So in that foreign country they would have prepared the statements for their tax reporting in that foreign country, so that is the first priority that we will have to give, isn't it? But supposingly some students say no sir, that is a tax free country. Someone can argue that sir, that is a tax free country. If it is a tax free country, then in that particular case students, we will then go with whatever is the data of these elements which is prepared as per the books of accounts, and books of accounts means like in India we have got Companies Act. In that country also, whichever act which is applicable for preparation of their financial statement, on that basis whatever is the data available, that data is what is going to be captured. Okay. Now so far as the value of assets are concerned, be careful. So here students, in the case of an depreciable asset individually depreciable asset and another is a block. So as far as the individually depreciable asset is concerned, what we can say, we take the average. Same case, average at the beginning and at the end. In the case of block, if they are maintaining the asset as per the block method also, same thing, average at the beginning and at the end. Other than depreciable asset, whatever is the value as per the books of account. Other than the depreciable asset, we will take what? Whatever is the value, students, which is as per the books of accounts. So that is the value that we are supposed to take in this regard. Now let's look upon to the employee part. Be careful, huh? This is important. And shall include the person. See that? Now even the employee we have to take the average at the beginning and at the end. Average which is at the beginning and the end. So that why this average has to be taken? So that if anyone wants to do the manipulation, that manipulation could be avoided, and hence the reason of taking up this average. And shall include what? Include the person who, though not employed directly by the company, shall include what? The persons who, though not employed directly by the company, but they perform what? Perform the task similar to those performed by the employee. Do you know what these are? Many multinational company, I'll tell you the trend. It is an eye opener for many of you. Like for example, Johnson and Johnson, multinational company. Unilever's, Hindustan Liver, Procter and Gamble, P&G, Philips India, Godfrey Phillips. All these foreign companies which I'm taking the name of, there is one peculiar thing that you will note. They may not. You are a qualified CA. You go there to take up the job. You don't get directly employed by the company in their payroll. Are you aware of that? They will not do that. What they will do is that they will hire a manpower agency. They will hire what? A manpower agency, and they will tell to that manpower agency what they will tell. That you do one thing, you hire these particular people on my behalf. You hire these people, students, on my behalf. So therefore, all the CAs, chartered accountants who are recruited, they are in the payroll of that manpower agency. And the manpower agency will then put you to Johnson and Johnson. The manpower agency students, they will put you to Johnson and Johnson. Now, what happens is that Johnson and Johnson will pay monthly amount to whom? To that manpower agency. And then the manpower agency will pay you. Pay you what? Your salary. So you are getting officially salary from whom? Not Johnson and Johnson, but from the manpower agency. You'll say, sir, but what is the benefit of this? Lot of benefit, students. By doing so, they will escape from the labor laws in India. All the PF, gratuity, etc. with Johnson and Johnson otherwise have to pay, they will not be required to pay anymore. Because you are not the employee in that case. Isn't it? So you are working 24/7 in J&J office, Johnson and Johnson office, but for record purpose, you are not the employee of the Johnson and Johnson. The salary that you receive is from that manpower agency. That is a reality. Is that point clear to all of you students? Every one of you are clear with this one? Now, question therefore to all of you would be that they are not the employees. So you are not the employee of that foreign company. You are not the employee of that foreign company as per the record. But whether you will be considered as an employee in India of that foreign company to decide what? Active business outside India test. Although as per the record, you are not the employee of that foreign company. But whether you will be considered as an employee in India of that foreign company for deciding what? Active business outside India test. Say students, will you be decided? So that the answer is yes, students, in this case. So you shall be decided, students, in this context. And because of that very reason, students, the reason being, this is the reason. See that? This is the reason. Now coming on the next particular part, students, the payroll test. Payroll means all that, whatever it is, which has been given to you. Passive income, students, we have discussed. In that case, students, are you ready for the first question? So students, over here, let's deal with the first question then. John Butler Tex Inc. is a company incorporated in Colombo, Sri Lanka. 60% of its shares are held by I Private Limited, a domestic company. So can I say, now be careful, my question to all of you. You have to give me the answer. Can we say that the foreign company, which is a foreign company? John Butler. It is a subsidiary company of I Private Limited. John Butler is a subsidiary of I Private Limited. So if it is a subsidiary of I Private Limited, therefore, can we say in this context, quickly, can we say, students, in this context that because the foreign company is a subsidiary of, because the foreign company is a subsidiary of the Indian company, therefore can we say that the active business outside India test is fulfilled? Quickly say. Say quickly, students. Because you are the subsidiary of what? Subsidiary of foreign company is a subsidiary of an Indian company. On that reason, can we therefore say that the poem of the foreign company is in India? Or can we say that the de facto control is in India? De facto control is what control? Students, be careful. De facto control, when we say, it is not the shareholding control. It is a control over the business. Please be careful. Huh? When we talk about the de facto control, that de facto control does not mean that the shareholding control is there. De facto control means the control over the business. So tell me, in this case, can we say that because the foreign company is a subsidiary of an Indian company, therefore the foreign company's poem is in India? Answer is no. This is not a criteria. This was never a criteria. Did I ever told you this criteria? I never told you this criteria. I told you the criteria that has to be decided. To decide the location of the poem of the foreign company is what? First check the active business outside India test is satisfied or not. If it is satisfied, then there is a test to decide about its poem. If it is not satisfied, then there is another test to decide its poem. But I have never ever told you that if the foreign company is a subsidiary of an Indian company, then therefore the poem of the foreign company will be in India. Is that clear? Just write a note quickly, students. This is a point which you should always keep in mind. You should never ever try to make an error on this part. Please write. Where, where, where the foreign company, where the foreign company is a subsidiary, where the foreign company is a subsidiary of a domestic company, then that that by itself, that by itself does not suggest, that by itself does not suggest that the poem of the foreign company, that the poem of the foreign company is in India. Further, the de facto control of an Indian company, of an Indian company needs to be seen, needs to be seen qua the business and not qua the shareholding. Remember this word qua I have mentioned earlier also? This word? In relation to. Perfect. Very good. Qua the business and not qua the shareholding. Yes, Trina. Perfect. Full stop. Therefore, the location of the poem will be decided independently will be decided independently on the basis of on the basis of the ABOI on the basis of the ABOI. Full stop. Okay. Please keep this point in mind, students. And I'm repeating, this is an important one. So this is where they are actually trying to confuse you with this. And please tell me one thing. When they give you this particular data, you may not be even aware of it. Now conceptually now you have become clear. But then what do you do about this data in the examination? What you do about this data in the examination? In one line, in the notes, you have to discard this data. Either you confirm this data or discard this data. You cannot ignore this data in your solution. Did you all got this one? Conceptually, you all are now knowing your final answer would be also right. But you have taken the risk of ignoring this data. Ignoring your data in your solution. You may not be even aware that this point carries 1 mark or half mark. So what I'm telling you in this case, they are throwing on you some data, kindly confirm or discard in your notes. Don't ignore it in your notes. Is that clear to all of you? If you ignore it, for sure, it will be at the cost of your some of the marks. Some marks is going to be getting a dent. I can tell you with full confidence, this is what is going to happen. Then at the end, you think that you have done it very well, but then you think, oh, sir, so less marks. This is the reason of the less marks. How did you all got this one? So this needs to be addressed in the data, but don't drag it unnecessarily. Why? You don't have to explain it. You can just have to simply write that the location of the poem is not on the basis of the shareholding, but it is on the basis of the ABOI. Don't drag it, all that thing. Oh, okay, so therefore that is not required. Anyways, so the data relating to John Butler Tax Inc. are as under India, Sri Lanka, fixed asset at depreciated value for tax purpose, 90 crores and 70 crores respectively. Intangible assets 40 and 180 crores respectively. Other assets 30 and 90 crores respectively. Income from trading operation 15 and 42. Income from investments 30 and 13. Number of employee 40 and 60. Fine. So that is what is the entire scope of it. Now if you see it very carefully, students, over here, what do you all get it in this regard? Be careful. So check out the total. First of all, herein, you will have to do like this. Asset test, na? Okay, this is what you need to do. Just try. You just make a. I'll give you an attempt. You people also try once, so at least your mind should open up, na? I'll give you 2 minutes, students. Do whatever the best that you can do. From the data available to you, do whatever the best that you can do. ABOI, yeah? Test ABOI. Let me see. Students, through with this one, all of you. Ram Kumar. So over here, students, please compare how you would have done it. Assets in India. So assets in India is how much? You have to take the total of everything. You don't have to do individually. You have to do in aggregate all the assets in India. So 90, 40 and 30. We assume that. Obviously, they have not given us the figure of opening and closing. So we will assume that it is average. Isn't it? That is one thing we have to make an assumption. So 90, 120 and then thereafter this will become what? Here in 160. And what about Sri Lanka? You see, it would be 340. And then the total, obviously, Indian asset, both are 500. Percentage term, how much? So less than 50% is satisfied. Less than 50% wouldn't be satisfied. All of you agree to this one? Now, going to the next particular point, which is about the income. So one is the income from the trading operation and another is the income from the investment. So if you look into the income from the trading operation, this situation, what do you get it? So this is the business income and this income is from investment. This is a passive income. So passive income is this. Okay. Is the passive income. How much is the passive income? Now, is it that the passive income you will see only of India? You will see both, huh, students? That is the error that you will do. Passive income, the active business, for that the passive income has to be seen. Passive income, you don't have to then restrict only of India. You will have to see for both. This is the error that many of you will be doing. That's clear to all of you. The passive income you will not be seeing for whom? For a particular this thing. You'll have to see for both, and therefore in this case becomes how much? 43. So how much is the passive income? 43. How much is the total income? So 43 plus business income is how much? 57. So total would be 160. 160 students. Sorry, 100. So you tell me now in this case the passive income. 43. 43%. So again, is the passive income is more than 50% of the total income? Answer is passive income is not more than 50% of total income. Even this condition is satisfied. What about number of employed students? Number of employees in India. In this case, it is 40%. Therefore, even this condition is fulfilled. Can we say therefore, if in this case, active business outside India satisfied? And if active business outside India is satisfied? Yes. Answer is yes. Key point number 2. Beautiful point. Point number 2. What an issue, Ram. So, if because of the increased operation in India, more manpower is needed, 30 more employees will be required in this regard. The company can either take these employees directly in its payroll, or it can outsource the increased operation to an external agency which will engage 15 employees in its payroll. So, students, obviously, if you take in your payroll, then it will become how much? 30. In which case, India's strength will be how much, students? It will become 70. And if India's strength, students, become 70, obviously, then the Indian presence would be more than 50%. And if it is that, you know what is the answer. Therefore, then the ABOI will be not fulfilled. The ABOI in this case will not be fulfilled, isn't it? So active business outside India will not be fulfilled. One more important point, wrong statement now. ABOI, people will say ABOI in India. See, this is what the people will say. Because that the employee strength is 70, therefore ABOI is in India. ABOIs are never in India. See the full form, active business outside India test. For that we have to only say whether it is satisfied or not satisfied. Only this is to be said. What is to be said about in India is the poem is in India or not. So in India, reference has to be with the poem. For ABOI, never say ABOI in India because the employees are 70 and more than 50% as compared to the total employee. Therefore, ABOI is in India. Wrong statement. I hope that you will not make these errors in the examination the way it appears in this particular case. Fine, students. So these errors has to be avoided. That ABOI is outside India. All these particular aspects needs to be avoided. Fine. Now taking the discussion further, students, in this particular context, what we will say? Point number 2 over here. Now, because the increase of operation in India, more manpower is needed. So therefore, okay, now instead of 30, then if I do outsource 15, if I do 15, then total is how much? 55. Still it is less than 50%. 55, therefore still it is less than 15%. So because it is less than 15%, therefore ABOI is satisfied. If it is 15, then ABOI is satisfied. I hope that all of you are now clear with this one. If it is 15, then the ABOI is satisfied. Is that clear to all of you? If it is 15, then the ABOI is satisfied. Fine? That is it. So you have to accordingly will have to give your this thing. That is what it is. You can run through solution. Question number 2, students, will be a homework. This case, so that it will give you the practice, students. Question number 2, please do this practice, but don't expect, students, don't expect that you will be getting this kind of a question in the exam. You will never get this kind of a question in the exam. Is that clear to all of you? MCQs, or maybe they will use it. Now these questions which are being there were that of that time when it was used by the ICI very early times. This was being targeted. Later on, this was never being targeted by the ICI. I hope that every one of you are clear with this one. Okay, so you can, students, do it primarily right now in this context. All of you, quickly, just deal with this one. Question number 2. All of you solve with this one. Solve it in your own way in this case, and we will then see in the next session on this particular part, solution part. But do solve it effectively.